So, Matt, it's hard to believe, but it's been over 4 years since I've been here. And basically, I'm here the same week. I'm really excited. We got, the water levels aren't bad. Nope. There's fish in the river. And we got rain coming, which should bring in the sea trout and bring in fresh salmon. I mean, it's perfect conditions for myself and Tim and Josh and all. I mean, you got a full house here. The place is packed.
Yep. Yeah.
So I'm pretty pumped.
There's definitely potential there for sure. The water is a little warm, but with that rain, it should cool things off and bring in some fresh fish and hopefully the trout.
I love those sea trout. Who doesn't like sea trout?
That's a nice size fish. What?
Absolutely fantastic.
The new fly fisher is supported by Newfoundland and Labrador Outfitters Association, Orvis Fly Fishing, Scientific Anglers, Trout Unlimited, WeatherTech Canada,
the Gander River. One of my favorite Atlantic salmon fishing destinations. Starting in June and running right through until October, thousands of salmon migrate up this famed river to spawn. 4 years earlier, I'd come to Gander River Outfitters this same week in September and enjoyed some wonderful fishing. Beautiful fish. There he goes. For this year's trip, I've invited 2 friends to join me on this early September adventure. Josh Jenkins and Tim Flagler. Both are keen salmon anglers. Unfortunately, due to flight delays, they couldn't arrive until later in the day. So until they arrive, I have time to sort out my flies for the week's fishing fun. Wow, what can I say? I like organizing my flies, especially because last few times I've been out salmon fishing, I turn these fly boxes basically into roadkill. But let's talk about the patterns and how they relate to the fishing and the water conditions, because every one of these flies, from the bombers to the wet flies, have a time and a place based on those conditions. Let's have a look at that. Low water conditions are something you can experience at different times of the year, especially later in the season, like right now. Your best bet is to use smaller sized wet flies, such as sizes 8 to 12. Favorite patterns I like include traditional blue charm, which is deadly everywhere, including here. Also, a blue charm with glitter in the wings. Here in the Gander River, sometimes a blue charm with a white wing can often trigger a hit. A fly that many associate with topwater action, but can also be fished as a wet fly, is the glitter bug, also known as a green ass bug. 4 years ago, I caught most of my salmon on the Gander on this fly swung beneath the surface like a wet fly. For topwater, it's hard to beat bombers and bugs. The bumblebee has worked very effectively for me in both Labrador and Newfoundland. White and chartreuse bombers with orange hackle tied long is one of my favorites. This particular fly was invented by Paul White and is known as the dirty bomber or dirty grandpa. The longer and softer the hackle, the better. Unquestionably, this was my best producing topwater fly. It drives salmon crazy. These are some of the flies I'll try out this week. After finally sorting out all my flies and gear, it was time for a little reading and a nap. Tim and Josh finally arrived.
Hey boys.
And after taking their luggage to their rooms, they got settled in. Though exhausted from travel, they decided to go out after dinner and cast a fly. But unfortunately, with no success. However, later we were all rewarded with the wondrous northern lights before bed. The next morning, we awoke to cloud, wind, and even rain. Perfect. The Gander River is low and relatively warm. Fresh rains and rising water conditions would hopefully bring in new runs of salmon. After tanking up with coffee and blueberry pancakes, we all headed out. Tim and Josh were taken upriver to an area they call the Upper Rattle, and I would fish in front of the lodge. While the boys were fishing upriver, I had a chance to chat with one of the guests, Kevin Power, who's a Newfoundlander and experienced Atlantic salmon angler. He spoke of the allure of salmon.
I think the challenge, the beauty of the fish, when you do get one on, the power and grace that they have, the fight, everything about it is the stuff that keeps you coming back, the magic that keeps me coming back. There's nothing like it for me personally. I don't spend as much time chasing other species because I just can't draw myself away from Atlantic salmon.
Tim and Josh returned for dinner without any happy news. Like me, we had not moved a single fish. After dinner, we all went back out on the river to cast before dark. I had a few minutes to chat with Josh, who's the head of R&D at Scientific Anglers. I chatted with Josh about the increasing use of Spey lines on single-handed fly rods.
I'm Josh Jenkins from Scientific Anglers, and I wanted to briefly go over our Spey Light series of fly lines. Spey Light is available in two different tapers. We have a Scandi and a Skagit. Scandi is going to be better for smaller flies and very light sinking leaders. And if you needed to throw a heavier sink tip or maybe a larger fly, the Skagit line would be your go-to choice. Both the Scandi and the Skagit are available as head only or an integrated version with the running line automatically attached. And that's actually the one I prefer because you don't have a knot going in and out of your guides while you're fishing. I've been using the Scandi here actually on a single hand rod, which is one thing most people don't know is that they're pretty applicable for single hand rods as well. I've got a 9-foot 8 weight here with the Scandi set up, and we've been using it on the Gander River this week, and it's been working great. The single hand rod is going to come into play if you're swinging a smaller river, like what we have behind me, or perhaps you don't want to commit to a full trout Spey rod setup, and you just want to try Spey casting with your single hand rod that you already have. The Spey Light series is going to be a great option for you.
Though it was overcast and fronts were rolling through, the rain did not fall, despite all the weather forecasts. We had desperately needed rain to come to help lower water temperatures and raise water levels. This would trigger fresh salmon to come upriver from the estuary. Despite everyone's best angling efforts, it just wasn't happening. The next morning, we awoke to overcast conditions, and once again with the prediction of rain for the day. Certainly, the river needed it. Normally at this time of the year, the Gander River would be at least 1 to 2 feet deeper than current conditions, if only it would rain. We started the day at the lower rattle, fishing from both sides of the river, casting single-handed rods and also spey rods. Both wet flies and dry flies are being cast. All we needed was a willing salmon.
Atlantic salmon fishing is really different. It's kind of almost like an addiction. It's one of the reasons I really like Atlantic salmon fly fishing, is because every area you go to has its own traditions, its own flies, its own methods of fishing, and you try to bring methods from one area to the other, and it's not that it's frowned upon or anything, but it's just fun to learn about what people like in a particular area, whether it's the tippet material, how they fish, whether it's single-handed or two-handed, what kind of leaders you're using, and then of course what kind of flies. Yeah, just a lot of fun to learn about the traditions and the methods of each area. And same thing with the flies. Every place I've ever been, Atlantic salmon fishing has its own flies that are popular in the area, and some of the popular ones here, the glitter bug, a blue charm, a wild looking fly called a dirty bomber. So Atlantic salmon fishing to me is a lot like other fishing where you're pursuing these, kind of high level predators, if you will, and fish that you're not going to go out and catch half dozen in a day. You're hoping for a fish in a day or even in a week. And I mean things like Atlantic salmon or steelhead, muskie. Anglers that pursue these fish seem to understand that a lot is condition dependent. It's water conditions, flow, temperature, water level, weather, rain, wind, snow, ice, the whole deal. And Atlantic salmon fishermen in particular seem to be really understand the condition dependent and actually relish that it's part of the game. And I know it keeps me coming back time after time.
I hooked the first fish of the day, which turned out to be a small brook trout.
So my setup for today is a single hand rod, 9'7" weight. And then I've got actually just a Trout Spey Scandi on here. It's a pretty delicate taper and it casts a lot like a double hand Scandi, but it's a little shorter so I can cast it on my single hand rod. Just something different, fun to try casting different methods, especially when you're out here swinging all day. So yeah, standard large arbor reel with a decent drag, and that's about it. Oh, just had one eat the fly. I chased it a few times on the surface. I'm trying to just stay tight with it. It's kind of coming directly at me, unfortunately. Might be a salmon, actually. Oh, yep, it's a salmon. Goodness me. You about jumped in my waders, I think. That was pretty close. Nice. Beautiful fish. Thank you.
In looking at Josh's fish, we saw sea lice on its back, a sign this was a fresh fish coming upriver. Hopefully this meant more would be coming through. By noon the sky was blue and temperatures were climbing. It was time to head back to the lodge for lunch and a little siesta. We all hoped that some fresh salmon would come in on the next tide later that day. That night after dinner, we all went fishing out in front of the lodge. Traditionally, this is one of the better locations to find salmon moving through or holding. I had a chance to chat with Kevin Power again about the fishing here.
I think part of selecting a fly, people tend to gravitate to the types of fly that they like. For me personally, I tend to like dry flies, but you have to adapt to the water that you're fishing. The kind of water we're fishing here today in front of us, this nice smooth and calm and flat, is very adaptable to a dry fly, whereas rougher, faster waters is more adaptable to a wet fly. But people have their own preferences. But it's all very river specific as well, and pool specific as to what your best chances of success may be. When you come to, if you're coming to an outfitter's lodge like we're here today, the guides are just beyond invaluable. Not only do they put you on fish, they know where the fish are, but they will tell you, what conditions you're dealing with at the time, because the conditions change over the course of the year, obviously. There are no rules, but there are common sense things that people will tell you that will help you have greater success or chances at success, perhaps, than sticking with what you like. I think for somebody who's interested in recreational angling, certainly the number one factor would be that we're very fortunate in this province for Atlantic salmon to have a lot of rivers. Our rivers are still fairly healthy, and your chances of fighting these magnificent fish are pretty good on these rivers. But there are other things as well. There are a lot of people who are professional guides who can help you in so many ways. You meet great people too, and certainly I think anybody that's been around this particular lodge has a great respect for the people that work here, and you not only have great fishing, but you have good times, and you have the general beauty of the place. I mean, it's so relaxing for somebody that enjoys the outdoors to come out and have this kind of peace and quiet. We were very fortunate this week to actually see the Northern Lights, which was a thing of beauty even for me who's lived here most of my life.
We awoke to another beautiful day on the Gander River. It's been a cool night, and the warm river waters created a wondrous mist for us to view as we drank our coffee and got ready to enjoy a hearty breakfast. Today, Tim and Josh are going back upriver with their guide to fish some of the riffles and holding water. Meanwhile, I'm joining guest Kevin Power to fish the lower rattle, not far from the lodge. As Tim and Josh were casting methodically throughout the run, they never saw any salmon showing. Our cameraman put our drone up to get shots of the river, as well as the run that they were fishing. Later reviewing the footage, we realized there was actually salmon there, but obviously they just weren't happy. As sometimes happens, while Josh and Tim were not having any luck upriver, Kevin and I seemed to have the right charm today. Thankfully, the guides pulled out their phones to capture some of our action.
Oh yeah, nice one.
After a long day, we all headed back downriver to the lodge for dinner. Owner Matt Romkey had promised us a very special night of Newfoundland entertainment, and we were all excited for the festivities to begin. Matt and the Gander River Boys Band put on quite the show for us all. Lots of singing, laughing, and great camaraderie was shared by us all well into the night.
It's 100 miles an hour.
Day 5. Our last hours of fishing on the Gander River. Though everyone at the lodge has caught and released at least one salmon, it's been a tough week, especially for Tim Flagler, who has yet to land a fish. We hope this is going to be his day of redemption.
Okay, I just hooked a small salmon on the bomber, and he's coming in pretty quickly actually. I've got a lot of line out though. So the morning has been a bit slow, but we had some weather kind of come through, which maybe changed things up. We've seen a few fish moving around in here, but this is the first one we've actually had eat a fly. So yeah, looks like things might be on a bit of a mend. This looks like an older fish. It's a bit dark. Beautiful fish. Kind of cool to see the dark ones actually. He ate the bomber. So cool. Well, easy release on that fish. At least we know he went back safe and got the best of the fight out of him anyway. We'll get another one.
While Josh was working the upper part of this run, Tim was busy casting a dirty bomber out to some of the slower water, hoping his luck would finally change.
Nice. That is a great sea trout. So I just caught the biggest brook trout of my life on a fly that I tied. Just released her. Super stoked.
You know, it had been a tough week for Tim. I really felt for him. He was working so hard, using his two-handed rod, and then finally breaking down and going to a single-handed rod. And he just wasn't bringing up the fish. He wasn't getting those hook sets, and he just wasn't having the magic. And then finally it came together for him. Last day, 0 to hero time, and he cast his bomber out. We'd seen the fish come up, and he put the fly right out there, and he ate like 30 feet from me. I saw the salmon come up, go take it down, and there's a pause, 2, 3, and I went, strike! And I looked over, and Tim had his head down, and he goes, what?
My line got tangled around the reel handle, and I looked down for half a second to untangle it.
I thought it was done. I mean, I honestly thought Tim blew it. That was his one chance to go from 0 to hero. And what does Tim do? Cast that bomber out once, twice, third time. Eat. Same fish.
Looks like a good-sized tail.
Come on, buddy. Oh, well done, Ray. Oh, it popped right out. How about it? I tell you what, if he didn't eat a second time, we were staying here till midnight. So conditions have been tough, no doubt about that. And you know, I hadn't really even had a shot at a fish in days. And it wasn't really until I realized I turned around and just happened to catch my guide eating a banana in the back of the boat. And it all came together. This is why I hadn't had a touch. I'm absolutely convinced of it.
On the morning we left, the wind and the rain finally came, dropping water temperatures and raising water levels. Matt Romkey later told me that 24 hours after the rains hit, the river filled with fresh run salmon. Of course. So I don't mind telling you, I was kind of disappointed with the conditions. But you know, the cool thing was there's still fish here. We just didn't get a lot of fresh fish. We had to work our butts off to move those fish. And both Tim and Josh got into fish. I even managed to struggle through and get a fish. And everybody here got a fish. But the bottom line is, anybody that goes Atlantic salmon fishing experiences these types of environments once in a while. You can't do anything about it. But all the other things that we've talked about, the people here, the beautiful environment, the food, that's what makes a great fishing trip. It's not just about the fish. And I can definitely say I want to come back again to Gander River Outfitters and experience the Gander River because of all those things. Plus I know the next time we come, it's probably going to be a lot better, and I'll have a great time. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Thanks for watching.
The new fly fisher is supported by Newfoundland and Labrador Outfitters Association, Orvis Fly Fishing, Scientific Anglers, Trout Unlimited, WeatherTech Canada,